Hi, I'm Oscar Rios, and you're listening to Legends of Tabletop.
Hey everybody, we're episode 51 today. We've got Oscar Rios with us again, 2 weeks in a row. We're going to be talking about the Heroes of Red Hook, Golden Goblin Press's new Kickstarter for their first, I think this is the first one for the fiction line, right?
It is the first one for solely the fiction line. It's actually our third fiction book, but those were attached to RPG projects. This is the first standalone fiction. So it's really the birth of our fiction line,
Sweet.
our independent fiction line.
All right, so you've got more stuff in the works as far as the fiction line then coming down the pike.
We have a book that we're planning for 2017. We've already got a concept and a few. We haven't invited anyone yet, but we know what we're doing, and we have a good idea of who we're going to be inviting for that. So.
Nice.
That one will be called Between Twilight and Dawn. And those will be a collection of stories that begin at sunset, resolve by sunrise in any part of the world and in any historical period the author wants to write.
Nice.
So it's basically a really crappy night with the against the Cthulhu mythos.
Oh, that's going to be a very eclectic book, I would imagine then.
Right. I like it because I guess as an editor, we have no idea what people are going to send us. I mean, that criteria is so wide open. And the authors are just, the ones we've told and hinted at, they're all chomping at the bit. It's almost like you've thrown down the gauntlet and they're like, oh, I'm going to come up with something cool. So, and that'll be fun, just reading the pitches. Reading the pitches and the concepts of the stories that come in. So we're excited that we can get a lot of really interesting stories for that one. But that's several projects down the line. But you know us, we're plans within plans. We're always thinking and always planning.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the way you've got to do it.
People like, oh, you guys are so productive. I'm like, because we plan these things, a year, we know what we're doing all of 2017. It's not even a question. Work's already on the way for all of next year's projects. Because if you want to get stuff done, you have to. That's how long it takes to get these things done.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially if you're talking about all these are writing projects essentially. So, you've got to get people creating scenarios, writing stories. I mean, it's not like you can turn something around typically, in a real short period of time. So
yeah, it's not digging a hole or painting a fence.
Yeah,
it does take a little time. Even the best authors, it takes a little time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I would imagine too that even with the new project Heroes of Red Hook, that you've gone to some authors and be like, hey, we'd like you to be a part of the project, and just scheduling wise and things like that doesn't always work out.
We had 3 authors who were like on our wish list that we bigger name guys that we hadn't worked with before that we were really hoping we'd get, and we got 2 of the 3 really easily, and the third one was, I really want to do this, but I've got something else. I really want to do this, but I'm almost done. I think maybe I can. No, they moved up my deadline. They were like, as 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Maybe we'll have better luck next time. We'll have more notice. And so yeah, this book we really tried to go for many more. Well, the book is twice the size of anything we've done fiction-wise before. So we were able to approach a lot more authors and some bigger name authors, because now it's our third book. We're not an unknown entity. We can say, hey,
right.
It's our third book. Look, we're growing up. We're actually doing this. So we're getting to taking a little more seriously, and it helps that one of the big name guys ended up at our room party at Necronomicon and was drinking with us. So. Mm-hmm. You came and drank with us. Can you write? Like, yeah, I remember you guys. Sure, I'll write a story. I'm like, oh.
That was quite an adventure too that night.
Oh yeah. Oh, so yeah, you were there at the birth of this project.
Yeah, I guess essentially, yeah.
That was where the project was born. That's how long we've been working on this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I was
a year ago. You start planning these things a year in advance.
Yeah, I was hanging out with Chad and Murph, and I said, "Oh, well, what do you want to do tonight?" And he's like, "Oh, well, we're going to Oscars." What do you mean we're going to Oscars? Oscar who? Oh, we're going to Oscar Rios' room for a party. I'm like, okay. Am I allowed to go at work?
Yeah, we were like, just tell people to come. You know, to me, I mean, I've been going to cons since the mid '80s. To me, a room party with snacks and drinks and people just coming, whether you know them or not, people just coming and gathering for a room party. That's like salt of the earth. That's like the foundation of a good con.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 2 years before that, there were no Necronomicon room parties. And I'm like, well, screw it. We're having a room party. We have to plan it a little bit better because I don't think security was happy with our room party. We're already starting to make plans for the next one, but we'll see how that goes.
Awesome.
It was great. It was like one of those. It's like when you hear about the coffee houses in Boston right before the Revolution. It was just a whole bunch of passionate, hyped up, really intelligent people just having great conversation. I mean, it was literally one of the best room parties I'd ever been a part of. I mean, such amazing, eclectic people, and generous. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one already. God knows what will come of that one.
I'll be there with bells this time.
Cool. We need some bells.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk a little bit about why you're here tonight. The Heroes of Red Hook. It's your new fiction book coming out. Tell us a little bit about the project. It's been in work for over a year now.
It's been in the works for over a year. It's really an effort to bring more diversity into the genre of cosmic horror. The core foundation of cosmic horror in the works of H.P. Lovecraft, they're the basis of a genre that we all love. I mean, well, maybe you don't love it, but a lot of people do. I certainly do. But it's a. I don't want to use the term product of its times because lots of people wrote in that period who did not have these leanings and views about the role. The negative depictions of minorities and immigrants and non-Christians and not really much regard for women and forget about any LGBT representation. And LGBT is nothing new. In the 20s and 30s, you had some very liberal movements going on. So this was this has been part of the national conversation since that period. So we really wanted to create a collection that gave voice and gave voice to some of these groups who haven't had much of a voice. To give a perspective that we haven't seen before, because to me and to many others, it's not the foreigners or the immigrants or the cultists who are the problem. It's these cosmic alien forces against all of mankind. And there are people, there are bad people, but there are bad people in every ethnic group. Mm-hmm. It's not like one ethnic group doesn't have any bad people and every other ethnic group has all of them.
Right.
So we thought it would be interesting to create a collection of stories that really focused on all of these underrepresented groups. So, independent women, hardworking immigrants, proud minorities, courageous members of the LGBT community, and other outsider groups. We have one wonderful story where the hero of the story, it's not identified, but it reads as if they have some form of autism or Asperger. And they're the star of the show. They are the hero. And this is not someone you would ever write a story that this was the hero, but our author did, and did a wonderful job. Every author in this collection did just amazing work, and we're really proud and thrilled to have them all on board.
Cool. And it's 17 stories currently, where the first stretch goal is going to be for an 18th.
Actually, the second stretch goal is for story 18.
Okay.
It was funny when we got to 17, and we were just a hair under 100,000. We were, I think, at 97,000 words. And we're like, okay, we're done. We're exhausted. It's close enough to 100,000 words. And we had one story kind of like drip, like just kind of starting the hanging. And it turned out when we looked at the 17 stories, we had left out an ethnic group that was near and dear to my heart. We did not have a Hispanic story.
Oh.
I'm like, how do we not have a Hispanic story when, you know, I'm Oscar Rios, I'm Hispanic? I'm like, what the hell? Like, what the hell's wrong with me? How did we not have some, you know, how did I not say, hey, no. So we actually got a really great Cuban story after. And we were like, okay, if we're lucky enough to get stretch goals, this will be one of the first one, and we'll put it out there. And we put up a quick little poll on our Facebook page, like, hey, what stretch goal would you be most interested? And an 18th story was like 5-1, you know, in favor of yes, we would like an 18th story.
Oh, of course.
Like, okay, we're that'll be one of our first stretch goals, and we're really excited about offering that. That's the Zumpty story.
Cool. Now I got to ask you. So this was, you know, the genesis of this was last year at Necronomicon. Was this sort of a direct response to things that happened at Necronomicon last year?
I would say it was inspired by actual events. I would not say it's a direct response, because we're not really responding to any one thing. What we're trying to do is we're trying to, you know, nudge the course of a genre that we all love in a more inclusive direction. You know, this isn't, you know, oh my God, this happened, so we need to do this. It was more like there's still this going on, so we need to show something much more positive. You know, this project did not come from an angry or hateful place. This project came from a place where, you know what, we really want to do something positive for our own community, so we can start moving away from that stigma. I mean, every time you see an interview in the media about Lovecraft, about the Cthulhu mythos, second paragraph, third paragraph, if you're lucky, they're talking about the inherent racism in the genre.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you know, we're almost 100 years away from most of when these stories are written. Can we move past it? Can we move in a new, more inclusive direction? And that's what this project is trying to do, and many other projects. I mean, there have been great collections of cosmic horror stories with strong women compilations. Ballad of Black Tom is an amazing Cthulhu mythos novella, and you know, that's again a strong African American character. So you know, the tide is turning, and I'm thrilled that, you know, my little podunk company gets to be a part of that.
Cool. You've got a story in the collection.
Yeah.
What's that like for you?
Amazingly enough.
What's that like for you when you know, say, hey, I want to be, you know, a part of this as far as being an author or whatever? Is there any stress for you as to whether or not you are selected or not selected? Or is like, I'm going to put it in, and you know, if it's in, it's in. If it's not,
oh
whatever.
Man, no way. You know, and when it comes to writing scenarios, I've kind of got it down. You know, I've written, you know, 70 576 of these. Most of them are published. I've got good reviews. I'm probably, I'm near the top of that. I'm comfortable writing scenarios. When it comes to fiction, I am the guy just trying to get off the bench who wants the opportunity to bunt. I love writing it. I'm still learning how to do it effectively. So when I pitched for this, and I work with Brian Sammons, who's our fiction line editor, and I didn't pitch for the Invictus book, our Tales of Cthulhu Invictus, and I love Cthulhu Invictus. I mean, aside from the creator, I doubt there's another human being that doesn't love this genre, that game more than I do. And I would probably, I'd arm wrestle Chad Bowser to see who loves Cthulhu Invictus more at this point. But I said no. Brian, he's got enough stress. It's our first book. I don't want him to have to worry about. I've pitched stories to him for other companies, and he has. Now he's working with me. I don't want to put him on the spot. Caribbean book comes along. We're gonna do our second one. Again, same thing. It's our second book. I'm not gonna pitch. I'm just gonna let it go. This one comes along. There's no way I'm not gonna try to get in. I mean, this is such a passion project, and I know he knows 40 authors who are better than me. I mean, I'm not proud. I when it comes to fiction, I have to be, understandably humble. I told him, I said, look, I'm going to pitch, but let me make something clear. If it doesn't deserve to be in this book, do not accept it. No hard feelings. You will be keeping me from making a fool of myself. And it'll be even worse, because not only will it be a crappy story in an otherwise great collection, it'll be a crappy story written by the president of the company, so everybody knows how he got in. Oh, you're the director's sister. That's, no. So it's like, it's even twice as bad, So he was like, okay, if those are the ground rules, you really got to, kick it up a notch. So I found a concept I was really in love with. Worked, as hard as I'd ever worked on a fiction project before. Showed it to a bunch of people. Got their feedback, went back, fixed it. It's actually, I'm doing a story about a transgender couple. I am lucky enough to know a couple of wonderful transgender people. Showed it to both of them. They gave me feedback. I went back and made other changes. Finally sent it to Brian, and Brian's like, okay, you're good. I'm like, oh, thank God. Like, huge sigh of relief.
Right.
Which is funny, because it's my concept and it's my company, but I'm like, no, when it comes to being an author, I'm just another author in the author pool.
Sure.
And we can't have it any other way.
Right.
And even when we do scenarios, it's the same kind of vetting. We do blind pitching. I almost didn't get into the Caribbean book. But then again, everyone in the Caribbean book almost didn't get into the Caribbean book. It was that was a bloodbath of a pitching process.
Well, it's good that you have that sort of relationship with Brian. Then that he's comfortable and you're comfortable, and there's that back and forth where you're like, hey, look, if it sucks, don't.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to publish a story that sucks. I certainly don't want my story to be the one we published that sucks. So no, he vetted me pretty heavily on that one. So I was happy, and I'm very thrilled and proud to be in a book with so many authors way more talented than myself.
Cool. So have you gotten any sort of blowback from people who are like, oh, all this stuff is in the news, and you guys are trying to cash in and that kind of stuff?
We honestly expected more. Initially, we did get a little bit. There was a few comments floating online. One that really got under my skin, and that said that we were pandering. like and I had to, before I really got completely out of my head, I had to look it up, and I'm like, really, the definition is like, exploiting a weakness. And I'm like, really, since when does social justice become, human rights? Oh, that's a an unpleasant trait. So that twisted me. But I was like, we're not gonna. And I told everyone, we are not responding negatively. We are not getting into flame wars or pissing contests. We are going to do what we do. We are going to be classy about it, and we're going to let the work speak for itself. And we know what we're doing and why we're doing it. People are going to say what they're going to say,
right?
And honestly, that's the only time I can really think that it happened, and that was before we even launched. And we all expected a fair amount of blowback and negative attack, but it never really materialized. And I have to say, thank goodness for that. Restored my faith in humanity a little bit more.
Yeah.
But then I turn on the news and that's all shot to hell.
Right. Well, it's always best not to feed the trolls. I mean, it just plays in exactly what they're looking for. So,
right.
They get people all torqued up, and then they feel better about themselves, I guess.
Yeah, it's a dynamic that you can't win. And for someone who likes to talk, like myself, when you get a different opinion, your almost reflex is to debate. Is to offer calm, logical, argument. But you can't reason with trolls. They're not interested in discussing views, and they're certainly not interested in compromise or empathy of any kind.
Right.
So there's no real reason to engage them in conversation, because they're not interested in conversation. They're interested in conflict. And conflict is the last thing we're interested in. We're trying to do something positive here. We're trying. Yeah, conflict is the opposite of what we're going for here.
Yeah, acceptance, inclusion.
Yeah.
All those warm fuzzy things.
Exactly. And there are people who don't understand, but that's okay. They're like, I don't really get the need for this, but okay, and that's fine. It's the people who don't understand it and get angry about it that no one should be caring about this stuff. That you're like, okay, you're never going to listen, you're never going to understand anything we say to the contrary. So unfortunately, we're just not going to be able to engage you in conversation about it. And that's that.
Well, I think for the most part, if you get most normal people together, you could have a conversation and disagree, and like say, like, well, okay, well, I don't see the point of it, but hey, you do you, and that's great.
Right.
But you always get those out. You're never going to get Hillary and Trump to sit down and like agree to disagree. It's I hate you, right, and whatever. But I tend to think that percentage of the population is small.
Right.
Overall, they're just very vocal,
especially on the internet.
Yeah, especially on the internet. Well, anonymity.
Apparently,
you have that anonymity online. I mean, you can you shouldn't, but I think people feel like they could just say whatever they want, and there's no repercussions or recourse. So,
I mean, we're nerds. We've grown up having passionate conversations about who would win in a fight between Scooby-Doo and Balto. I mean, we defended these vehemently, over beer and Cheetos, and walked away without any real answer, but it was the enjoyment of the discussion. There's no enjoying a discussion about human rights and social justice. If you're having this argument, it's pretty, you're already in a dark place.
Yeah. Starting off on the wrong foot already.
Yeah, and it's all downhill from there.
Yeah. Did you try to find authors who represented the different groups that they were writing about, or was it just like, hey?
We did. We really, Brian has a deep pool of authors that he's dealt with over the years, and we reached out to everyone we knew, and if we could find, a female author or an author from the LGBT community or a minority author who's done this type of writing, we courted them. We courted them pretty heavily. We explained the project. We tried to really let them know where we were coming from. This isn't cashing in, that this is something that we deeply believe in and feel very strongly about. And for the most part, it was like, you had me at Heroes of Red Hook. We told them the title, and they were like, we're with you, and we're proud and happy that someone's trying to do this. But you can only pull out a chair. You can't make someone sit down. There were all loved to have gotten involved, but because of timetable and scheduling and their commitments and our very very draconian deadlines, because we're trying to turn this around fast. We're Golden Goblin Press. We don't like to screw around with production time. We like to put books out. So it was like, what you need when? Like, we need it in 6 weeks. I'm like, I can't do 6 weeks. All right, well, there you go. So because of those reasons, a lot of the authors we were really hoping to attract, we couldn't get. But we got, we filled a 100,000-word book. We have 17 really wonderful stories that we believe in, and we're happy with the demographics we've covered. But the demographics were not as important as the stories being told. Sure. The portrayals of these groups, the quality of the work, and the tone of it was really more important than who the author was. Because if you're going to make a story about inclusion, and then you're going to be prejudiced against some author because of they're not the right shade you're looking for, then you're just a hypocrite. And you've just flipped the problem. You're the mirror image of the problem. So really, the stories were more important than who was telling them. But we really wanted to try and get invitations to as many of these groups as we possibly could. And I think we did an acceptable job. If we had more time and better luck, we could have done better. But that can be said of every project. If we had more time and better luck, it could have been better. But we're happy and proud of as good as close as we came to our ideal. And in some cases, it's better than we expected. There were some authors who really surprised us. There were some authors that were friends of friends. Like, I know this guy, and he's great. And we're like, okay. And he was great. And we were like, well, now we have another arrow in the quiver for the next book. We've got another go-to guy. So we were really happy about a couple of those. That's where we are with that.
Okay, cool. So right now we're sitting, it's 18 days left. You've got over 300 backers. I think it was about 318. 90% funded, and it's a little less than $1,200 until it's completely funded.
Yeah.
So not too bad.
Not too bad. We're happy. Like I said, it's kind of like pulling out a splinter. Until you're funded, you're feeling a little uneasy. So I'll be happy once. I don't have doubt that it will fund at this point. We're so close, and we've done well up till now. I'm just really excited about the stretch goals. Like, we have so much more planned for this that I hope we can get to. Everyone wants the 18th story. We need to fund. Yeah,
we got to get it pushed up there.
And if they only knew what the further stretch goals were, this could well be 2 books.
Really?
Yes. I can talk about it here because, as you said, we have 18 days and we are running out of time. Although, 18 days is still plenty of time to do lots of stuff. We've got 5 authors from this book who have agreed to write either sequels or prequels to their stories as novellas, as longer short stories, about 10 to 12,000 words each, really big, hefty stories. And when we start unlocking those stretch goals, they're going to start out as digital releases. They're just going to be one story for your device to read on your phone or on your tablet or on your e-reader. But if we unlock all 5, we're going to commission Ian McLean to do a second cover, and it's going to be released as a companion volume called Beyond Red Hook.
Nice.
So that will be 7, that will be 5, chunkier, long, more detailed stories. And nothing's written yet. They've all been approached. All the authors have agreed. They've got their concepts. And I said, nobody start writing. These are stretch goals. So just wait and see what happens. So you plan. You make lots and lots of plans, and we've always had stretch goals left on the table. These wonderful little things that we just never got to. We ran out of time or steam before we got to them. So hopefully we'll have less of those in this one. But we're very excited about that.
Awesome. Well, people got to get out there and start pledging away. We want to get a whole nother book out of this deal.
Right. Yeah, and the physical copies will be an add-on, but everyone who backs, even for the digital level, will get, if we unlock these stretch goals, we'll get the digital copies of those for free as included.
Nice.
So for the $15 minimum backing level of getting digital rewards, you may end up with 2 books, or a book and a couple of novellas, depending on how far we get.
Sure.
And then it'll be fun. We're hoping to have the book fully illustrated. Every story get an interior black and white illustration, either as a title or we're not sure how our graphic designer is going to frame it out, but we're hoping to have one interior illustration per story, just because our illustrator does great work, and who doesn't like pictures? What author doesn't love to see an illustration of their work?
Mm-hmm. And talking about add-ons, you can also add on Tales of Cthulhu Invictus and Dread Shadows in Paradise for $15.
Right. Because a lot of people did. We're expecting a lot of people. This will be their first time with us. They may not play the role-playing games. They may be a fiction backer. So we do have 2 other fiction titles out that they may be unfamiliar with. So we're going to be printing Dread Shadows about the same time we're printing Heroes of Red Hook. So we expect those both physically in-house at the same time. So we'll be able to send those out. And Tales of Cthulhu Invictus we have on hand already.
Okay, awesome.
I'm as shocked as anyone that we're going to have 3 fiction books out of this. Where's the time go?
Yeah, it just flies by, that's for sure.
Yeah, you can walk by. You have to wave. My wife, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, they can. This is live. She's like, they can't see me. I'm like, oh, no, they can't.
Yeah. That's my daughter usually runs down the hallway when I'm doing this because she doesn't want to. Yeah, or cat. I don't know where he is.
It's too hot now. My cats are all in windows, or they would have walked by now.
Yeah, I don't. She must have ours because I haven't seen him. I don't know where he went to.
Oh, and we'll have bookmarks. Because cool little kooky bookmarks are always fun to have.
Mm-hmm. I always love a good bookmark.
Right. So, and they're fun to have at like a dealer's table. They're almost promotional.
Mm-hmm.
So if we get the first stretch goal, every physical copy of the book will ship with a bookmark.
Nice. And $30 will get you that physical copy. It's a soft cover, and you'll get a digital copy to go along with that as well.
Right. Every physical book is getting a digital companion to it. Everyone is a little like, oh, it's a $30. I'm like, well, you're getting the digital copy and you're getting the physical copy. We're not charging you extra for any. It's a package.
Yeah. Cool. What's the status of Tales of the Caribbean? While we have you on here, what can you let people know about that?
Have the 7 core scenarios. I can happily say that 3 of them are now completely edited and in proofreading. 3 of them are in the 2 of them are in the later stages of editing that we can get them to proofreading probably in the next couple of weeks. I'm going away this weekend, so maybe 3. And I finally, all the editing has been done, and I can actually get back to writing. So I can proudly say that the scenarios set in Puerto Rico that I'm writing, Night Forms a Cover for Sinners, I just crossed the 7,200 word mark, which for me, that's about halfway. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. You don't really realize, you don't really think about your culture until you examine it, until you start writing about it. I've wanted to write a scenario set in Puerto Rico pretty much forever. And God knows my mom has wanted me to write a scenario set in Puerto Rico since I've been writing. So it's something that's been on my eventually list. So as I'm writing about places and people and historical characters, you start to really think about how your family, how your cousins and your parents, if they were in one of these stories with that sensibility, how would they behave? What would the Cthulhu mythos look like in Puerto Rico? And if you don't know any Puerto Ricans, we're pretty superstitious people. So it's funny writing something set there, and from that perspective, it's really putting me in touch with a lot of my childhood. So it's pretty fun. It's just been such a slog getting to that point, because could I do personal writing, or could I should I focus on editing so we can get this scenario into proofreading?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, I'm not going to be able to relax enough to write if I know I've got editing to do.
Sure.
So pretty much I just kept hammering away at all the editing. And then when every single scenario was edited, and now in Lisa Paddle's hands, I was like, I finally had time on my hands, and yes, now I can sit and not have any other distractions and get to writing. And since I've gotten that open ground, it's been going very, very well.
Cool.
So where are we? We are 3 in proofreading, 2 probably 2 weeks away from proofreading, 1 probably 3 weeks away from proofreading. I'll probably have the Puerto Rico scenario done next week. I'm playtesting it the weekend after. By the 2nd week of August, I expect that one to be fully edited. And hopefully in layout by September.
Okay. So is that more or less on schedule still then?
No. We've had every sort of problem that the first 3 RPG books didn't have. So I can't be angry. I can be disappointed, but I can't be angry. We dodged bullets for years, and then it was like this one just flew into the asteroid field, and we hit every rock. And we've worked through it. We haven't sunk. We're still flying, but we may have a few bruises, but we're getting it done, and we're very happy with the way everything is coming together. it's just been a lot more difficult shepherding this one in the port than the others. And that's just slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. It's not even one thing that I can be angry at one person or aspect of the project. It's just like, I'm sick. I'm moving. My daughter graduated junior high, did her confirmation, and had a dance recital all within about 6 weeks. So it's like, good God, why is everything happening all at once? And it seemed like for half of our staff, everything happened all at once. It was just the perfect storm of, this is going to be as difficult as possible.
Right.
But I think we're coming away from it, wiser. There's some stuff we did on this project we will not be doing again.
Well, that's good. You learn from your mistakes, and then they become not mistakes because you get something from it. But that, as long as you guys are communicating with backers and things like that, I think that people will be, when people don't know anything, then, even as fans or whatever, they're like, oh my God, I gave, what's going on? I gave them the money. It's supposed to be out now. But as long as you're like, hey, these are the things that are going on, this is where we are with things, I think people will be, more placated by that and be like, okay, hey, I would rather have quality than just give me a book that's not ready.
Right. We update on the 1st and the 15th, like clockwork. Sometimes we'll be a day early, sometimes we'll be a day late. And that keeps the backers informed and calm, and that keeps us honest, because it'll be 3 days before the 1st or the 15th, and I'll be cracking the whip. I'm like, look, we need to get some of this done. Mm-hmm. I cannot post an update and say, hey, we've done nothing. I said, I'm not going to be that guy. And, you're not going to make us be that guy. Let's be like, okay, we do, so like a term paper due, that the 4 days before the 1st or the 15th, sometimes we're, having an extra pot of coffee to get things done. But, keeping us honest and keeping the backers informed, if I'm backing a Kickstarter, that's what I would hope would be happening. I would hope that the creators are concerned enough for me as a backer that they're making a real effort to get it out. And we're making a real effort to get it out. And it's funny, most of our backers are like, dude, 3 months isn't late. In Kickstarter world, 3 months is a year early. And we're like, my God, help, we don't ever want to be that complacent that we're like, oh, it's a little late. Mm-hmm. We're always like, we need to get this done. We need to get this out.
Right.
And it's the way we're going to be. I don't know if it's a good way to be. I'd have to check my blood pressure. It's probably not a good way to be. We drink a lot of coffee at the Goblin Lair. Mm-hmm. And don't get enough exercise, but we get books out, and we're happy with that.
That sounds like my house, and I don't get any books out, so where does that leave me?
But it is what it is. We love what we do. We enjoy doing what we do. And as long as these projects keep funding, we're going to keep doing it. And, we're going to hopefully learn from our mistakes, and every project will be a little bit better than the last. At least that's what we're trying to do. Right. Sometimes the fates will conspire to interfere with that, but we get on well with the fates pretty much most of the time. So it's not always going to be smooth. Things are going to fall apart time and time again, but you do your best not to let it affect your relationships within the team. Like, you definitely don't want to turn on the people who love what you do and doing it with you. The last thing I want to do is damage any of the relationships I have with some of these wonderful people who are helping me put these things out. who are doing the bulk of the work, to be honest.
Right, right.
I'm just the ringleader.
It's like herding cats.
Oh, we're a little better than cats. Not much. We're a little bit, maybe terriers. High strung terriers.
It's all the coffee.
Right. Yeah, the coffee.
And then so the plan is to have this out by the end of the year, like November-ish?
The plan is to have this out. We have the manuscript edited. I mean, we have the book done. Mm-hmm. I can send it to proofreading today. But until I fund, I don't want to do that. I've already got 18 authors, a graphic designer, an illustrator, and a co-editor who have worked really hard on this on a maybe. Because I'm like, if we don't fund, guys. So I've got 22 odd people, waiting. I don't want to have 23. So the truth is, I'm like, until we fund, I'm not going to have you do anything. But as soon as we fund, we're going to send it to editing. And we can get it to layout pretty quickly. The funny part is the thing I'm most afraid of delaying this book is the backer inscriptions and thank you notes.
Oh, yeah.
We really need to get these in. And I feel very strongly about it because it is such a personal project and issue for so many people. There's definitely people who are going to want to put in a personal message in this. But we're going to need to get those pretty quickly. We're going to have to put a very hard deadline of about 2 weeks. And you think, oh, that's plenty of time, but people with backer surveys, sometimes they don't check their emails for weeks. So that's one, believe it or not, as crazy as it sounds, that's the thing I'm most nervous about in slowing down the production of the book. We can't release it until we've made a genuine effort to get all of them in. But sure. that's I'm not paying the backers. I can't yell at them. They're paying me.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that they will, those who really feel strongly about getting their message in will respond to the backer surveys as quickly as they can so we can get those into proofreading, into layout as quickly as possible.
And hopefully people who are, want to include a message and are, at that backer level, they've already got something in mind. They're backing at that level because they want to put something in there that they're already thinking ahead to, like, hey, I got to get something together. That way, when it comes, it's done and done.
And we've had some, I've spoken to a few people who want to have messages in, and it's very moving. One person who wants to write a message to an aunt who had passed, who was actually closeted their whole life. And they didn't realize that their aunt was a lesbian until after she had died. And they were like, why didn't she ever say it? And well, because in that day and age, you didn't.
Right.
So that's moving. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other people who really want to get it in. So we want to make every effort to give people the time to do that. How much time is you can't make everyone happy.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they have to understand too that you're on a time frame, and things have to happen at certain times. So
right. And as soon as we fund, I can start asking people to send them in. I mean, we may be asking people to send them in before the end of the campaign, just to give people a little padding time. But until we fund, there's no reason to bother anyone.
Right. And so you already said you have another fiction project scheduled for 2017. You have any other projects that you want to talk about?
We are actually in pre-production on our next RPG title.
Okay.
I've got my author team together. We've hashed out an overarching campaign. We are working on the plots for our individual chapters. That's going to be called, Children of the Black Stone. It's going to be our first international campaign, and it's set in, I believe, 1932. So we're actually leaving the 20s and getting into the early 30s. Because Europe's a much scarier place in the early 30s than it was in the 20s.
That's for sure.
It'll be post the market crash. It will be Great Depression era. And it will center around the mythology of R.E. Howard's The Black Stone. We will have a chapter in Arkham. We will have my good friend Fred Groves doing a chapter in New York. Brian Salmon's doing a chapter in London. Jeffrey Muller doing a chapter in France. We will have Scott David Annualowski. Hold on. Wait. Scott Glancy. David Scott Glancy. Let me not get this wrong again. David Scott Glancy doing our chapter in Germany, which we are absolutely thrilled with. I mean, he's probably one of the top 3 guys to write a story set in Germany in the 30s. He was like near the top of our list, and he's like, I'm busy with 10 other projects. There's no way. I'm like, it's in the 30s and it's in Germany. He goes, all right, I'm in. Then I will probably be doing a additional chapter. I start the campaign in Arkham. I will probably have the next to last scenario set in Hungary. And Dan Harms will be the anchorman for the campaign, and I can't tell you where that takes place.
Okay.
That would be a spoiler. It's nowhere good.
Fair enough.
It's going to suck, but hopefully, the investigators will not be there forever.
Mm-hmm.
But we're really excited about it. We're hashing out our concepts now. Everyone's really super creative. We're all adding our Lego blocks to this wall, and we're coming up with some really interesting stuff. So I'm very excited. But we can't put that one on the front burner until we get the Caribbean project out the door. So that's a slow boiling pot.
Sure.
Hope to have that, move to the front over, by the fall. That'll once we get the Caribbean book into layout, we can start the authors and editors focused fully on the Blackstone project.
Nice. That's cool.
If all goes well, we'll be launching that Kickstarter probably in February.
Okay, that's not too far now.
So let's see how that goes. But that's the plan. You make plans. It don't always go so well, but you make plans.
That's what you got to do. Well, let me dovetail all the way back around. Okay. When did you, and we might have asked you this before, but in the context of Heroes of Red Hook and all, when did you first become introduced to Lovecraft?
My sister Diana was working in Barnes and Noble when I was a teenager, when I was probably about 14. So she decided that she was going to get me a few horror books right before Halloween. One of them was Interview with a Vampire, and another was R.E. Howard's the R.E. Howard collection, Mythos and Kindred Horror. I'm not writing vampire fiction. That really grabbed me. And I was playing D&D at the time, and I read, started reading Lovecraft, and like, oh wow, there's an RPG of Cthulhu, of Call of Cthulhu. So by the 90s, I was a Call of Cthulhu gamer, and by the end of the 90s, I was writing my first scenario, and I started publishing in the early 2000s.
Okay. Well, and so what was that like for you then as a minority to come to Lovecraft? Like, was there like, I really like it, but I really hate it? Like, how did that sort of play out for you as a young person to be like, why is this guy such an asshole?
It is difficult. I will tell you that. And as a Hispanic New Yorker, it is doubly difficult because not only did he hate my ethnic group, he hated my city.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so it was and it remains difficult at times. I like to say that I have a love-hate relationship with H.P. Lovecraft. I love the genre he created, and he would have hated me as a person. Um, so it is troubling. The one Hispanic name that comes to mind is De Castro, and he's an evil cultist, lunatic. I'm like, okay, great. Um, it is difficult on a personal level, and it's difficult for many other fans of this genre. You end up making investigators, and because you don't want to deal with the racism of the time, even if you're a minority or a woman, you make straight gay male investigators because it's just easier.
Hmm.
And it's not a positive thing to sweep that history under the rug. It's not a positive thing to pretend none of this happened. We're not solving any problems by saying, well, H.P. Lovecraft was a product of his times, and just leaving it at that. We need to have the conversation, and we need to move the genre in a more inclusive direction. And growing up loving this and reading about how ethnic groups such as myself are always the villains and the reason that everything is bad. You get to a point where you want to really tell different kinds of stories. And all through my career, I've here and there tried to introduce positive minority and positive female and even positive LBGT characters in my role-playing scenarios. But you can only reach so many people in role-playing. A Call of Cthulhu RPG book is not changing it's not changing cosmic horror.
Right.
To change cosmic horror, you need to work through fiction. The gamers are going to game. I mean, we're used to gaming next to people who are dwarves and elves and mutants. Right. We tend to be a rather accepting demographic, but moving into mainstream fiction and trying to nudge the course of this river there, that's where the battle needs to happen, and that's where we've come. And maybe battle's a bad word because I mean we're battling, I guess, like the hippies with flowers. We're really not looking to fight with anyone. We're not looking to have conflict. We're just looking to lay it out there, to show positive representations of people who have not been given a voice in the genre, and letting the work speak for itself.
Was it the strength of the work? So, like, how did that work for you? Was it like the strength of the stories or the uniqueness of the genre kind of allowed you to sort of power through the inherent racism that was there in Lovecraft?
It definitely was the love of of cosmic horror, and understanding its origin of fear of science and the changing times and the hopelessness that arose out of the disasters of the Great War and the global influenza pandemic. I mean, really, you look at what happened to the psyche of people in society after you deal with a global conflict that, you could have 500,000 casualties in an hour. Feeling betrayed by science because they're creating things like mustard gas and bombers and automatic weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling betrayed by the forces you respected, with governments and generals, and basically a general losing faith. So those are powerful themes. And those are the themes that really made me love cosmic horror. The racism, not so much.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you've got the racism mixed in there, and it's like, oh, I really love this candy bar, but it has nuts. So for a long time, you're just eating around the nuts. My wife needs to know. But it didn't make me choose another candy bar. I loved the message. I loved the theme. I loved the genre enough that for a long time I just accepted this as part of it. And then the world changed, and I got older, and I became a parent. And I saw so many people targeted, and the works of H.P. Lovecraft being held up as prophetic, being held up as a role model for hate groups, and I just it really twisted me. I was feeling like I could not let a genre I love be defined by this one aspect of it. And really, it's one aspect. And we can remove that aspect, or at least, have the genre evolve beyond it, and it still be cosmic horror. The message of it still be the same. The reason the reasons that make cosmic horror haven't changed. By making cosmic horror a more inclusive place.
Right. That's probably a great way to end this whole thing. I don't have anything else, and I appreciate you sharing that perspective, because obviously, I guess we're probably about the same age, I guess, but obviously our backgrounds are completely different, and I appreciate you sharing that, because it's not something that I necessarily experience as a white dude. So it's like, hey, everything's peachy keen, I mean, you see it, you're aware of it.
Yeah, but you say, what is your ethnicity? Not that it matters.
White, generic white guy. I'm actually my Polish and Czechoslovakian.
Polish. Do you know what the Poles and the Czechoslovakians went through coming to this country in the 20s and 30s?
Yeah.
You may not think of it, but you were Red Hook. You were the people. I mean, do a word search on any, Lovecraftian story for Poles.
Yeah,
you're not going to be happy.
Right. Yeah, but it's
everybody who was Irish and Italian and, God forbid, Jewish.
Right.
You're not going to be happy with what you see in the mythos. So being white, trust me, you needed to be a very specific type of white.
Yeah.
to not fall into this.
Yeah, but a
lot of our white authors really looked at it, and they were like, "Wow, the Irish were treated like total crap." Like, yeah. And they're not treated too much better today, but it's people in America who feel like, I'm white, this is not part of my conversation, are forgetting a huge part of their history.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a disservice, because you have overcome so much, and we all have.
Right.
That you may feel this conversation is about you.
Right. Well, my grandmother, her birth certificate was in Polish. Like her parents came here and they spoke Polish, or I guess my grandmother could understand it. My grandfather still spoke it, but they never taught, like my parents and aunts and uncles and stuff. So it was just never, it was never a thing. Like it just was never part of the consciousness of
because
Polish.
because being an immigrant carried with it such a negative stigma.
Yeah.
So so many groups did not hold on to these immigrant traditions. They fully embraced, I'm American, and they really, they stopped speaking their native languages, and they didn't teach their tradition to their children, and they forced, American culture on them as a default, and tried to get away from that as quickly as possible. And one of our stories actually touches on this. Mercedes Yardley's story, Ivan and the Herding Doll. He's a Russian immigrant, and he's been told from childhood, you're going to be a strong American man, and you need to forget about everything else. So I'm actually glad that we've had this little extra conversation, because, you may have felt like an outsider, but I assure you, you are not an outsider to this conversation. You are part of this conversation. And there's a struggle within your own heritage that, you may not, and many people, that they may not really realize until they look back. Don't think about where you are now. Think about where your family was 100 years ago. What were they going through?
They weren't even here. Really yeah, 100 years ago, they were still in Poland.
Right.
Which it's really it's weird. Every once in a while, like I'll think, be like, geez, we're only like second, third generation being here, but it's like it's never been anything other than that, which is really kind of a weird juxtaposition, because it's my grandmother was born here. Like that's the beginning, So it is kind of weird to think about every once in a while that, we just never had a connection to that. Although I tell you what, I make a mean potato pancake.
I make pierogies myself, but I'm a New Yorker, and I'm born here, so technically I'm everything. You grow up in New York, you are the world. Thai food, Italian, Chinese, Korean, Polish, yeah. So I love probably a little too much, but I love every ethnicity food. You want to come to this country? Fine. Invite me over for dinner, and invite me to one of your parties. It's going to be a hoot. But yeah, that's really what that's the attitude that I'm hoping this book conveys: a coming together of cultures, of ethnicities, of orientations, and seeing the positive of it, as opposed to focusing on the negative. And the negative is really a very narrow portion of it, and in most cases, it's an illusion. It's someone's directed narrative.
Yeah, if that's what they want to latch onto, then there's definitely an ulterior motive, because, like you say, it's not even really a part of. It's not an intrinsic part of the genre as far as the cosmic horror. It's where racist, Lovecraft's background or whatever prompted him to have those sort of views and behaviors, but that's not what the genre is about.
Right.
So
it's bigger than that. I mean, the circle that he's created, the mythology, several generations of authors that have come since him, have been telling different types of stories, and now it's time to it's our generation. It's a new changing of the tide, and it's time to, tell, even a slightly different version of this narrative, where it's all of us against the mythos, instead of some of us against the rest of us and the mythos.
That never works well.
I like to think we're all in this together as human beings. And, some of the turncoat stunted hybrids are on our side too.
Yeah.
Those Yithians who got stuck in human bodies, even some of them are on our side.
Right. Well, I want to thank you for coming on and having this conversation and really for, putting this book together and kind of, bringing this sort of to the forefront and, and I don't want to say making an issue out of it, but just, sort of pointing it out and kind of engendering the conversation. And that's, for someone who's, got his own company, it's like, hey, we're a gaming company. But, you're taking this opportunity to kind of, move the football down the field, as it were, and really try to engage people. And that's commendable. And we appreciate that, you guys are doing that.
Well, you look at something that you'd love to see happen, and sometimes the only way to see that happen is to do it. I mean, I'm blessed enough that I'm in the position that I am, and I know so many amazing people that we can actually make something like this happen. So it would be a disservice to the universe if I didn't, get off my fat ass and try to actually do it.
Well, that's awesome. It's awesome that you did do it.
Well, I haven't done anything. It's up to the backers.
Well, yeah.
I'm just trying. It's up to them whether we do it or not, and we're very grateful for the faith they've shown in us in past projects, and hopefully in this one and in future ones.
I have no doubt. You want to give out all your contact details here as we're wrapping things up?
Definitely look for us on Kickstarter. Heroes of Red Hook. You can like us, like Golden Goblin Press on Facebook. We are very active updating there. We seldom touch our Twitter. I'm really bad about that, but we're on Facebook. And if you back one of our projects, you can expect constant updates. It may get annoying. You don't have to read them all, but they're there if you want to. You can scroll through 5 or 6 of our updates when you're on the bowl, and you're bored. You're trapped on a train, but you'll know what we're doing, whether you want to know it or not. But yeah, that would really be the best way. Facebook and back us on Kickstarter. You'll know what's going on.
Links are in the show notes, so people can check it out there and hit the follows and the likes and all that jazz. So I'll give out all of our stuff too. It's website is legendsoftabletop.com. You can reach out by email. It's legendsoftabletop@gmail.com. Give us your questions, comments, and feedback there. We're on most of the social media platforms. You can find us on iTunes. We're in Google Play. If you could rate us, leave us a review on iTunes, that would be fantastic. We have a Amazon affiliate link, which I haven't been promoting, but if you're going to order from Amazon, go ahead and go to the website first and click on that. I just ordered a desk for my daughter through there, so cha-ching, get a couple of bucks. Yeah, we have, I think next week, I don't have the calendar up. Next week we have Stephen Picorni coming on from Dwarven Forge. The week after that, we'll have Blue Heron Games will be coming on. We have, for those of you who are into reality TV, we have Adam Pock from Big Brother 13 will be coming on. I know Adam way back from Boy Scout days, so I'm looking forward to talking to him. We haven't really spoken in a number of years. Wendy Wagner will be coming on in August. I just talked to Shane Ivey. He'll be coming on towards the end of August. So we're filling in the schedule. We've got a bunch of people coming on, so stay tuned for all that stuff. And we appreciate everybody checking it out. Go back to Kickstarter. If you're listening to this, you're probably already interested. So go hit that button and make your pledge. I'll be doing that before the Kickstarter's over myself. And appreciate everybody checking it out. And we'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye now.